into the sun. When we last spoke, I said that I was going to change and we were going to talk about business. This probably isn't what you had in mind. In fact, it's not what I had in mind either. I'll explain this in just a second. As you can probably see, I'm standing in front of my house, but we had a little problem before we came home. There was a bit of a storm, and we lost some trees. In fact, if you'll come over here, come over here, you'll see one of the trees that we lost. It's about almost as thick as I am tall. You see a few of the branches left over there, which we haven't been able to cut and remove yet. And you see over here in the corner, you see a little piece of the trunk that we had to cut up. And of course, all of this mud here used to be a lawn, but in order to get the tree trunks out so that they could, instead of just burning them, they could take them to a lumber mill. They came in with some big loaders and basically tore everything up. This that I have here on my pants and my shirt actually happened when I was doing some cleanup, and I lit a fire here to get rid of some scraps of lumber. And I remembered at the time that there was I had some from the house remodeling. I had some construction debris there close by, and I remembered there were a couple of cans of that insulation Stuff It, you know, the foam insulation. It's good when it works, but a lot of times you'll try to get it to work, and it will have dried up and stuff, and you can't get anything out. So I'd thrown it there. And when I was making my fire, or after my fire got going, it exploded, and I learned. Well, I ran around a little bit, and then I remembered the stop, drop, and roll technique, which I discovered actually does work, doesn't it, Goose? Yeah, it actually does work. Well, so what does this unexpected turn of events have to do with a course in organizational behavior? Actually, it's kind of important, because all of this stuff that happened, I really didn't have very much control over. And this was an inland hurricane. We haven't had anything. We have tornadoes occasionally, but we haven't had anything this disastrous certainly not in my lifetime, nor in the lifetime of the people who live here. When you think about trying to be a manager in today's world, you have to ask yourself, exactly how much control does a manager have? For instance, getting this hot burning insulation all over me was really very stupid. But given the number of variables I was dealing with at the time, the likelihood that I was going to remember that there was that can just barely buried underneath my fire is pretty small. Remembering to stop, drop, and roll, again, it's something I thought about years ago. I used to teach my kids. We'd have fire drills and stuff. But I had actually run a number of feet before I finally remembered, oh yeah, you're supposed to stop, drop, and roll. When you think about this whole situation and my attempts to deal with this general disaster. And look at some of the trees and the other crap that we have to clean up. And this is just one side of the house. If you look back over there, you'll see more trees that went down and more crap, so forth. When you put yourself in this position and you say, well, okay, I'm going to try to fix this, I'm going to try to work with this. In some ways, I think it is reminiscent of some of the issues that managers face that we're going to be talking about during the course. Two particularly that come to mind. First of all, when you live in a dynamic, volatile environment, to what degree do you actually have the resources and the capability to respond and to adapt to that environment in a constructive way? All of the popular management literature says, oh, of course we adapt. Tom Peters, Thriving on Chaos. So we have the rules of change, and of course a good manager is going to adapt and adjust to these rules. Can that be done? If it can be done, how is it done? And again, the gurus will give you all sorts of fun and interesting theories about how you can adapt to chaos. You may argue, well, of course, that's what human beings have been doing since the dawn of time. Everything around us is an adaptation to chaos. I don't know. And then another question that goes along the same line is, if you have an environment that is volatile, it's unpredictable, how do you organize? Because most organizations, the very concept of organization implies a certain amount of stability. And yet these situations are not only dynamic, they're sometimes totally unpredictable. How, if indeed it is possible, how can you construct an environment that adapts to chaos? And finally, when you think of my limitations that got me this present, this is a nice new pair of leaves. I shouldn't have worn them out working. I should have known better. You know, to what degree would a sharper person have remembered that? Would have they avoided it? Would they have? And so the actual limitations of human efforts to be rational are a very important question that managers have to deal with. And in our chapter on decision making, and in our chapter on organization structure, and also when we talk about the three types of authority, this question of to what degree can an organization and to what degree can an individual really adapt to a changing environment, to what degree is that possible, and how do you go about that? That actually ends up being one of the, I think, one of the central questions of the course that we'll try to deal with.